you said to me earlier, your guys all swing differently. Well, it's because I don't have a preference.
Yeah.
Like some guys move great. Sean O'Hare is Mr. Gumby. He's unbelievable. He doesn't play golf and he comes out swinging like Sean O'Hare. He's phenomenally gifted. He's not tight. He's incredible. Then some players are really, really tight.
So I think that's phenomenal about you, that even at your level right now, that you're still learning.
Yeah, I mean, and I think you see people that are refreshing, that have been doing it a long time, and they're always trying to learn. So, you know, Chuck Cook is unbelievable like that. I met Chuck in depth the first time back on a Morad course in Palm Springs, probably 12, 13 years ago.
You know, and
Matt? Chuck, you here? Oh, yeah.
How long were you in for?
No, probably a year or so. Enough to assimilate some amazing information. And Matt was fantastic. I kind of left on my own accord. I was never officially out.
Oh,
right?
Man, then you don't have a cool story, dude. Because I got my story. We all got our stories.
No, I never had a falling out with him. I always kind of took the high road. But so I met Chuck there, right? And Chuck was that was refreshing because he was great at. He wanted to learn, and I'm like, well, this is a guy's taught multiple major winners, and he's always trying different things. Now,
right?
I think that Mike Adams he's a good buddy of mine as well. Both those guys have been big influences to me. You know, they're always learning and trying to find new information, and I think that's you never have all of the, if you like, solutions to everything. So you've got to keep learning, and there's always going to be things you don't understand. And I think that the one great thing, when you take a big step back and the more folks you go and see, everyone's intention is very much the same. They're all trying to do something different. Now, we've got to the point now where we have a lot of objective data. So you kind of have a bullshit detector in terms of what someone might be saying and trying to communicate to a player. They may get the player to do it, but it may not actually be what they're saying. It's just that the player kind of does it. So the more I go see different people, their delivery mechanism and the things that they use, if you like, their metaphors, analogies, may not be technically accurate and supported by data, but they get good outcomes. But that's still a great opportunity to be able to go, okay, well, I could use that with someone that might work well for them, or that might resonate. And I think that's the thing. So you're always trying to learn. Sometimes you go to something, you totally disagree with it, and it actually validates that what you're doing is right. And I think guys like Chuck and Mike Adams, like Jim Hardy, folks that have been around a long time, I think that they do that in some way just to make sure and to validate, okay, well, they're saying what I do. They're just saying it in maybe a different way. And so at the end of the day, the golf ball's round. It's about an inch and a quarter. The club, similar size. The drivers have gotten a little bit bigger. So, yes, we've had some difference with what you can get away with in terms of swinging as hard as you like, yada, yada. But the reality is golf's not really changed that much. So there's nothing dramatically new. There's just new understandings. The technique itself, you go back and look at guys in old black and white pictures, and Chambly, Brandel, I like Brandel a lot, friends with him. Mm-hmm. He's kind of making this, this guy did this guy. Yeah, well, golfers know what to do. We just now have a better understanding of what those pictures look like and what creates that. What are the kinetics of the kinematics that are occurring? We just know that better now, so that makes it easier for us to help different players. But unless you continue to learn and challenge yourself and go see different people, it becomes really hard to get better and more proficient. And I think that's what you want to do. You want to go surround yourself with people who are always trying to learn. And if you keep it in and you think that you know it all, that's when people, if you get caught on an island and there's even a group of you and you're on the same island and you get caught in a trend, bad stuff happens because everyone starts to be swing. Look, all the players you work with look like they swing the same. So you're giving them the same information. Yeah. Now you get caught. Eventually you're going to get caught with your pants down because it's not going to work. And now you're in a hole.
This is a perfect lead into what I wanted to kind of ask you about next is all your tour players, to me, when I look at them, they all look different. And
Yep.
to your point there, it's not cookie cutter. It's like, how do you go about, how's your system, and how do you go about evaluating, okay, this person kind of needs maybe to do this? I mean, because you see a lot of that with people. I mean, you use quite a bit of technology, right? You have gas.
Yeah.
I see you doing the K-Vest stuff with that stuff online. I love it. How do you determine, what goes through Mark's head in determining when a tour player comes to him? Is it maybe a player comes to you and says, hey, I want to draw the ball better, or I want to fade the ball better? Is that how you're making sort of your decision making?
Yeah. Okay. So I have a framework that basically is agnostic to the point where I'm shot centric, right? Score centric, and then below score centric is now shot centric. I kind of have this layering, if you like. So if you want to draw the ball or fade the ball and you come to see me, regardless of your skill level, okay, that's the outcome. So I'm going to start with the end in mind and work backwards. There's none of this, well, I look at the swing and go, well, you need to do this, this, and this, and then you figure out what ball flight you want. That is completely makes no sense.
Okay.
Because you want all of the ingredients. So if you go into a restaurant and it's a Chinese restaurant and you don't want to get Mexican food. So you need all the ingredients to give for the recipe to be what you want to eat. So if someone wants to draw it or fade it, that's massive. So that's number one. So I'm starting with the shot shape, trajectory, shape, all of their goals there, right?
Yeah.
Then my biggest thing, and the thing I'm probably most passionate about, is their movement pattern. So I'm going to assess them, right? So I spend a lot of time traveling around the world teaching TPI seminars, and a lot of people say, well, why'd you teach that information? It's someone else's. I'm like, well, it's not. It's movement screening, which to me is a massively important skill set for a coach, because you need to know what someone can do. So I look at ball flight, I look at what they do from a movement standpoint, and based on that, that gives me the ingredients that from them physically. I know what they should try to do and what they shouldn't try to do. So if you've got no shoulder flexion, you can't put your arms above your head, and you want to have a really high, big, wide arc like Dustin Johnson, the only way you're going to do that, you can do it, but you're going to stand up, you're going to lose your posture, and you're probably going to have a flat shoulder plane. Now, there's been guys play the tour doing that. Kenny Perry did a reasonable job with it. That's fine. But you can't, you need to understand and be educated that that's the case.
Good.
So those are the things so I start with the ball flight. Then I start with how does somebody essentially, how are they moving? And then from there, I mean, I don't have it here. That's pretty poor on me, but essentially my B logo is actually a symbol, right? So every swing has fundamentals. So when I say fundamentals and foundations, I mean, you've got your setup. So you've got ball position, posture, alignment, tilt, grip. So I'm going to look at that. Do those ingredients in there influence the shot you want to hit or hinder it? Because everybody shows up with some of the ingredients to make the recipe, but they're missing some. All I'm trying to do is give you more of the ingredients that you need to get you the outcome you want, regardless of the skill set. Just like the guy who's slicing it down Magnolia Lane, all I'm doing, well, he's missing some of the pieces to get this ball to tumble left because he wants to draw it. All I got to do is add some of those in. That's all it is. If you use that analogy, that's all teaching really is. From a swing standpoint, the technical X's and O's, not the playing the game. That's a different animal, right? So you've got the setup part. Then you've got their pivot. So I would say one of the things that this is probably, I'm going to move her here now.
Let's see it, big guy. Let's see the pure pivot. Yeah.
So I like the body to influence what you want the club to do. Does that make sense? So if the body's not helping it, that doesn't really help you. So hold on here a minute. Okay. So here's a 5-line. So at address, you've got your tilt. So let's go two ends of the spectrum here, and you can add it in however you want. So if someone comes to me and they set up like this and they want to draw it and they're a right-handed golfer, I'm like, well, this isn't very good because you're already influencing the direction of the swing, therefore the path to the left, just by how you set up. Now, if you're someone that wants to hit flat fades, that's pretty good. That's okay, but no good. So I'm going to get you more this way if you want to draw it. Now, how your torso orientates during the swing is massively significant to the shot that you want to hit. So lots of people have preferences. So I'm a 3D guy, been in it for a long time, going back to, I don't know, AM at TPI, 3D, AMM, K-Vest. I'm now running Rob Neal's GBD system. So I was using it 2 days ago, right? So I'm familiar with 3D.
Yep.
Tour databases, you're taking that 1% population and you're saying, well, they all do this. Well, there's still a range within that. And an average is dangerous, right? Because you've got outliers and all these other things that create the averages.
Yeah.
So whilst, you might have a preference that, hey, I want to be really pretty centered with these clubs. Don't necessarily want massive extension beyond, going into reverse spinement. I want some extension. I want to do all these things. Well, whilst the best players in the world that have got great thoracic mobility, 60 to 70 degrees, they've got the ability to contract their core and abdominals and do all these other things, that doesn't allow, the average golfer can't do any of that. So for them, that may not work. And most golfers that come to see me, if I'm talking about Mrs. Haverkamp, they don't really draw it. They slice the snot out of it.
Yeah.
So for me, if I want to teach somebody, hey, I want to draw it, so going on to the pivot part, I'm big. If the upper body moves more this way, more flex, this is going to be completely opposite to what George would teach, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm talking for average golfers, I have a lot more success getting somebody to get the low point behind the ball and the club moving inside out and the club path more positive for a right-handed golfer with a pivot that works more this way than a pivot that's this way. Now, that's not to say for some folks, I don't love a more centered pivot. But if they're going to have a more centered pivot, they sure as heck better have a really deep hand path and the club in a position back here to offset it if they want to draw it. I was a Morad, guy, golf machine guy. So I'm very, very familiar with that pattern. For some people, it's great, especially with the irons. But if you want to smash it, from what I now know about ground forces, frontal plane torque, horizontal plane torque, it ain't very good. So again, it's just like, but everybody's a different case. So depending on what you do, you've got different options. There's no substitute. The better you move, the more athletic you are. So if I work with a quarterback or a pitcher from Major League Sport, well, it's a different animal. Now you've got multiple options. But when somebody don't move very well and they're not very coordinated, you're kind of limited. So you go with things that this movement pattern is going to produce this or should, so you're going to deviate to it. So if someone wants excessive hook draw, I'm going to put you more over here with the shoulder plane a little flatter. That gets the club way more over here. Now it's traveling more across the plane on the downswing by default without them having to drop, loop, do any of this other nonsense. Now I can add those other ingredients into the downswing, but I don't need to do as much of it if I've already influenced that starting off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now if I want to fade it, it's going to be a different animal. I might be more level. I might go with more centered because as I come out, invariably now that's going to pitch that club out, and most of the time the club's got less depth. The hand path hasn't gone as much in. Now, that being said, you can still have no depth with your hand path, have wrist flexion and the wrist angles in this position a la Justin Thomas, and still get the mass behind the hand path on the way down. There's always a different way to do it depending on what the person brings to you and the shot that they want to hit, right? So from a pivot standpoint, then you've got the pelvis. Let's turn this down a bit.
There you go.
So, and this would all be included in the pivot, right? Do they have a lot of drift, sway off the ball? How does it move? What's the pitch of the pelvis? So this is a big buzzword, but I mean, it's obvious. Golf's played on an inclination. You're on a pitch. In order for that to happen, and your pelvis is elliptically shaped, right? So it's not round, but I don't have a pelvis here. I do at the teaching center, but it's elliptical. So if it's elliptical, it's as you turn it, it's going to move up, back, and around.
Yep.
In order to accommodate that, obviously the leg's going to straighten slightly.
Change flex.
She's going to move back. Now, for some people, that doesn't work. Some people actually, there's a thing called screw home on a knee. Long story short, some people might actually get more range if the knees flex and they work excessively that way. That's just physically, that some of that stuff can happen. So you can't assume that everybody needs to straighten the leg, pitch the pelvis to get more rotation, because the reality is your hip's going to turn a lot easier on a horizontal than it is on an incline. Just, I mean, look, you stand here and you try and rotate horizontally, you can turn way more than you can on a pitch. So as soon as you add inclination, sometimes it's going to be harder. Well, for the average golfer, they don't all have that great range of motion. It's one of those things where you're offsetting that. So you can't be, you said to me earlier, your guys all swing differently. Well, it's because I don't have a preference. Yeah. Like some guys move great. Sean O'Hare is Mr. Gumby. He's unbelievable. He doesn't play golf and he comes out swinging like Sean O'Hare. He's phenomenally gifted. He's not tight. He's incredible. Then some players are really, really tight. So it becomes difficult. You know what I mean? So JJ Spawn. JJ, I forgot JJ. He's one of my favorite people. So JJ lost, and he lost a bunch of weight. Yeah. So he used to have a golf swing that was pretty compact and he never had any runoff and it, you know, didn't cross the line at the top. Well, he's lost about 45 pounds. He's way healthier. Well, of course he's going to have runoff because now he's increased his thoracic rotation because he's just gone down about 4 jacket sizes. He can rotate more, so now he doesn't have as much of a stopping mechanism and the club runs on. So he has to understand that, okay, well, relative to that, now I got to do some other things, these other pieces. So everybody's different, so you've got to make these adjustments to help somebody. So in the backswing, you got your pivot, you've got the orientation of it, how much, the angles it turns on, the amount of side bend and the amount of rotation. Those things control the depth of the hand path and where the club's going. Now, the other part you've got is these other extremities. How much shoulder flexion do you have? How much lat mobility? That's going to determine the plane and the height. So if someone comes to me and they say, hey, I want to, go ahead.
What kind of test would you run on that, Mark, to determine that?
So if you're going to, so here we go. Yeah, I got a wall here. So if I'm going to try and test somebody for their shoulder flexion or ability to get their hands above their head in their posture, there's lots of them, right? Yeah. But a very simple one is to try and get your back. I'll do it here so you can see this. So I'm against the wall here, right? Get your lower back flat against the wall, okay? And then arms out straight. Can you bring your arms up above your head without your arms basically bending or looking like you're kicking a field goal? So if you're a person, let's do this, see if you can see this. If you're somebody that brings your arms up, okay, I'll take this off and then you'll see this better.
Our viewers just went up when you took that jacket off.
Yeah, that's not the case, but I'm old. Okay, so as you come up, right, if you're coming here, that's great. If you can keep your lumbar spine flat against the wall, straight up, arms straight, touch the wall without bending your arms, you got pretty good range of motion. To be honest, a lot of tour players, if you take the wall away without going into extension, they've got over 180 degrees of this shoulder flexion. So look how big you can make your arc. Yeah. Okay, that's all long drivers, right? There's not a long driver that looks like Matt Kuchar, is there?
Yeah, no.
No. So that's a power production. So in the backswing, you've got that. That's a big determinant of kind of where the plane and the path's going to be. And then obviously you've got your wrist conditions. How much flexion, extension, radial, ulnar deviation, pronation, and supination do you have? That combined with the initial grip is going to determine your wrist conditions. And what do you want to do? You want to hit it high, you want to hit it low. So again, now that comes into the initial question, what shot do you want to hit and what shape do you want to have? Because if someone's got the club way down in their fingers and they've got a lot of radial and they're telling me that they're steep but they really want to hit the ball high. I'm like, well, these wrist conditions aren't really conducive to a big wide arc. They're going to narrow the radius, and it's going to make it this way. I mean, they might have a goal. Yeah, not necessarily too narrow. Going to be perfect for a low flighted shot. I mean, Sergio Garcia is a machine. He does it. But it's not, if you're telling me you want to hit high towering Ernie Els draws, well, you better have your wrist angles out, baby. Yeah. That's a different animal. So again, those pieces all go into how the backswing works, the position, the orientation. So I'm kind of running all of those. Yeah. Then the other part is, how are they using the ground? So from a ground force standpoint, force precedes motion. And you have to apply a force, or to create motion, you have to apply a force. So what are you doing at the ground to create what you do? So if you're trying to produce power, is there any unweighting in the backswing? Like, are you doing some of those things so that you can essentially apply more force, more weight into the ground, early transition downswing, so that then you can apply more vertical force through the hit? So in the backswing, we've got how you set up, the pivot orientation for the shot at hand, hands and arm structure to control the club. You're trying to also simultaneously manage the mass, right? So these are all the variables that you're trying to talk about. So I'll give you two players I work with that are complete opposites. Okay. So Chappie wants to hit draws, and Ches wants to hit. Ches likes to hit draws. Chappie, JJ, they like to hit fades. Chappie and Ches do a fade very differently. Like Chappie and JJ fade differently. Chappie gets the arm out, strong player, maintains some of these wrist angles and gets around the corner, and strong guy. Yeah. JJ has a way shallower fade. He's going to flight it up more. His is different, manages the mass. Chappie can get out with the mass kicking out more. JJ needs the mass to shallow more and still fades it. JJ's got way more rotation through the ball than Chappie does. So Chappie does it slightly differently. He's got this as insurance to get him the other side. He's got a little bit more of this, which makes it easier to get the face. JJ's a little different. So those guys move differently, and they do it in a different way. But they're still, within the framework, they still have the pieces that they're trying to accomplish. Okay, this is what I need to do here. This is what I need to do here. Now, I will say in the downswing, obviously, I'm a massive proponent of maintaining your dynamic posture. So can you, like, people talk about early extension, but I'm more concerned, can you basically stay in your posture and your tilts through the hip? Because that means that the handle isn't deviating very much. Now, whilst your physicality is a massive part of that, how you move. So if you've got really struggle with your dorsiflexion in your ankles, you've got inhibited glutes, you've got tight hamstrings, your hip flexors are tight, you've got lower cross syndrome, any of those scenarios, you're going to have a predisposition to early extending. But at the same time, you can have all that and not early extend at all if you've got great force application. Now, knowing what we know now about your anterior, posterior, the push of the feet this way. So if you're looking above the golf swing, this is the torque. The better that is. So if you have too much trail side pull, pulling to the posterior side way hard, too hard, or pushing that way, you can throw that off, and you aren't able to create a force couple because you have these forces aren't out where they need to be, and now you might move into the ball. Yeah. Alternatively, you see a lot of guys that have terrible physical characteristics, awful, should be predisposed to losing their posture off the charts, and they don't, but they have a massive amount of force production, 30% plus of their body weight in their front foot, pushing, and then pushing in the anterior, posterior towards a target to send them around the corner. You don't see that with serial early extenders.
Thanks for watching, everybody, the JRL Golf Academy. Please make sure to link and comment down below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that little bell for notifications. And we look forward to seeing you on the next JRL Golf Academy.